Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipsson. Welcome to episode 91 of Sports Management Podcast. Before we start, I just want to ask you all for a very small favor. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to it on Spotify and Apple and give it a 5-star rating. It would help me very much in getting it visible to more people out there. Thank you. Moreover, this episode is sponsored by InSport Education, the online business school for sport. The best way to elevate your sports career, except for listening to this podcast, is to take part in InSport Education's courses and programs. InSport Education is offering sports management podcast listeners 10% off all of their courses with the code SportsManagementPodcast10. Click the link in the description below and elevate your sports business career today. Now, today's guest is Emil Sutovsky, the CEO of FIDE, the International Chess Federation. Emil is a chess player himself who started playing at 4 years old and managed to reach a grandmaster level and rank very high internationally. After his playing career, he transitioned into more managerial roles, but stayed in chess that he loves. Get ready to learn why so few women play chess, if chess is a sport, why Bobby Fischer was bigger than Messi and Ronaldo, the alleged cheating scandals in chess right now, chess and education, and much more. Emil Sutovsky, welcome to the Sports Management Podcast.
Hello, Marcus. Good to meet you.
Great to talk to you. You are the CEO of FIDE, the International Chess Federation. So can you tell me a little bit about your role and what it is that you do?
Well, it's a bit difficult to define because being CEO of such an organization obviously has a lot of hats on one head. But most importantly, as we witness a meteoric rise of popularity of chess in recent years, I'm trying to, together with my team, to cope with all the challenges, both from the new perspectives on the commercial side, but also in promotion chess all over the world. FIDE unites 200 national chess federations. And as we know that today, number of players who are taking chess either seriously or periodically is very high. And it's estimated that we have over 500 million regular players. That's a lot. That's a huge number. And of course, not all of them are competing in some sort of international rated competitions, but even those who are competing is over 1 million. So it's a serious number. And then you have a lot of kids who are studying in schools or even in kindergartens. Up to date, we have well above 20 million of kids who are taking chess lessons at least once a week in the schools or with teachers or in chess clubs. Over 20 millions with a regular teaching is a big number, so we have to provide proper monitoring for all that and overviewing it and sharing all the curriculum, and that's a big work. Separately is our top events. As you know, we have many events which are sort of pillars of FIDE international activity. First of all, the World Championship match, and then we have Chess Olympiad, and then we have World Cup, and then we have formats of a faster chess, which become more and more attractive for online audience, especially it's World Rapid Championship and World Blitz Championship. We do a lot to promote women's chess because that's one of the challenges which we have been facing quite a lot of time. Chess have been seen as almost solely the men's game, which we definitely want to change this trend, and we actually managed to. And from the participation levels of about 10-11% of female players, we're now talking a branch 15 to 20, which is still low numbers, but I think it's realistic to keep growing.
Wow, so many interesting topics to talk about. We can start with the last one that you brought up there, the number of women in the sport. Why do you think that chess has attracted mostly males, since it doesn't require a lot of physical strength? So why do you think that it has mostly been men playing?
I think there are several reasons. The leading one is obviously the socio-economical reasons, which for many years saw women and girls in particular who would start game, that they would be in a total minorities there compared to number of boys playing. Girls would go something that would typically be associated with girls, like dancing or singing, but not necessarily playing chess. And this situation lasted for many years, and that was sort of a paradigm which the entire chess world functioned in. Another problem has been for many years that the funding for female chess was very low. So if you could not compete on par with men, and that happened nearly all the time, apart of the one exception when we had Judith Polk, or ingenious player, who managed to get into top 10 in open section, so-called, because we don't have men and women chess. We have open, so open to all, and women, where only women can compete. So you wouldn't just make enough money to actually make it a career. And that was a problem as well. Now we reverse this trend and we increased dramatically the funding for women-only competitions. Now, why women are not, or still are not, that successful in chess compared to men? There are several points to it. Starting with simply still many more boys come to chess compared to girls. It is just stats which is very clear. We'll see a ratio of something like 3-1 at the very beginning. So that would explain the difference afterwards as well. Now, if you talk about why those who do invest in chess, who do study a lot and so on, why they are not as successful as boys, apart of numerous, but still not very numerous exceptions, it has to be said that chess is physical. It's not physical in the way basketball would be physical, but it requires a lot of energy, a lot of power to be invested, because chess games can be lasting and enduring. The competition can last within the same days for 5, 6, 7 hours. It also requires a lot of preparation. So in a single day, you need a lot of physical energy, sometimes even a lot of aggression, because aggression in a good meaning, because you need to be very, very, how would I say, focused on this idea of beating your opponent and so on. So there's something that testosterone levels probably play an impact. We see that women players often get to a grandmaster level, which is a high level in chess, but to get to the very, very top, it's very difficult, and the competition increases. Competition increases because now there are so many countries where chess being developed, and for women players is becoming more and more difficult, so they have to be really fully immersed in that. And here's also one difference, and maybe another major difference, which has been there from the beginning, and still we have more male players who are ready to dedicate their life into chess, to make it like, a career and even ahead of a family, which for female players is rarely a choice. And when you marry, when you get kids, it's more difficult. And in today's society, even if we talk about the most progressive societies where gender equality problems are almost non-existent, let's say Scandinavia, we see that the ratio is still there, heavily on men's side, and it's not something that can be artificially reversed. So I do not expect it to happen that within a few years, the ratio would be 50-50. No, it's unrealistic. But I think that what we should do is to create incentive for female players to invest in themselves, to progress, to sometimes to choose it as a career path, sometimes to choose it as a career path with plan B, that if they don't become top players who can earn decent money being chess professionals, to be chess promoters, to be chess teachers, because chess market is now really huge and it requires a lot of people around it, not only necessarily professional players.
Yeah, that's a very interesting aspect, and I would think that, as you said, might be physical, but women are doing, playing basketball as well. So it's an interesting aspect, and I'm glad to hear that although it's a long game, that you're working to get more women into the game. But are men playing versus women, and how are those games going? Because, for example, in basketball, that would be a big discrepancy if you mix male and females. But in my opinion, or in my assumption, is that in chess, that discrepancy would be less.
Yes, obviously it is less in chess than compared to the purely physical sport, be it basketball, football, or tennis. And women do play together with men in these open competitions. And the rating is one for all. So you have a rating which is unifying for male and female players. Now, talking about the level of competition when these things occur and they play together, it depends from tournament to tournament, but in general, it can be said that today you have one female player who is around number 50 or 60 in the world, and there are several women players who are around number 300 in the world. So it is quite a big difference, but still less than in physical sports.
And would you say that that is due to the physical aspect of chess or the strategic part?
No, surely not the strategic part. I would say that, once again, it starts from the choice from the beginning. The choice of talent is more on when you have 10 kids, then you have 10 boys, and you have 3 girls, right? So you initially have a wider choice. Then you have a choice of a career when even the most talented girls are preferring to focus on something else on their studies and not going to take chess as a career. Then you have a difference in this physical aspect, because chess, especially when we talk about the top level chess, it requires enormous amount of energy being invested. Then you can talk about social reasoning, like factor of family and kids. And there have been studies which are inconclusive at the moment, so I would rather not express it firmly. What if it is confirmed? Let's say one of the study took into account risk aversion, because in chess, one of the critical aspects is knowing when the risk can be taken, when you cannot calculate everything till the end. But you made a risky move and you evaluate that this risk should be rewarded. Now, one study suggests that female players are less likely to opt for these strategies. But these are inconclusive, once again, and it's, say, hypothesis that must be still checked. But even the first pretty conclusive facts, which I listed before, they make it already for a much less chances for women players to get there than compared to men.
That is incredibly interesting. And the last one, although inconclusive, as you said, that would be very interesting to see when that study is done, because that's really interesting with the psychological part of chess.
Right. Well, it's an important topic. And once again, there is no simple solution. And it's not enough just to say, okay, now we'll start to promote women chess and we'll be all for, equality, equity, and all. Everything should be happy and everybody would be, No, it doesn't work this way. It's not something that can be, I think it's something that has to be approached very responsibly without, these hypey slogans, but rather to see what's reality, what are the factors that really impact, how it can be adjusted. It also depends very much, think about it on a country-based level, because there's some countries where simply women playing chess would not be seen as something very common. There are some countries where there is a big tradition for women chess, and then it would be supported on the state level, national level, and then the talented girls would have a chance to study with most prominent trainers. They would get good tournaments to participate and then to grow. It actually has to be very clearly identified that countries that have dedicated governmental support for chess are most prosperous for women chess, once again, sorry, I have to stress, are producing most female players. So if for men, it's not very critical to be born in chess country with massive support of chess tradition. It's better, but it's not critical. And we could see that leading male players come from all over the world. In female chess is different. Let's say USA, one good example. There is no massive support for professional female players. I'm not talking about women chess in general. Women chess in general is supported and a lot is done, but for professional players, and then you don't have basically top professional players coming from USA. But you have the support in China or in Russia or in Poland or in Georgia or in Azerbaijan, and then you would have Kazakhstan, and then you would have a lot of players coming from there because they have a chance to progress, and that's very important. What happens in America, for example, there are a lot of chess prodigies, and chess is taught for the girls to grow as personalities, but there is no emphasis on a chance to become a professional player. And that's why many top girls who are very talented at the age when they have to make a decision about a college or even in high school, they already start dropping chess, taking it less seriously and focusing on their studies, because there is no sufficient support for that and an incentive and let's say, because typically, let's put it straight, typically the girls who are doing well in chess, they're smart girls, very smart.
Yeah.
And they have another choice, another career choice. And if they can go to Princeton to study, or I don't know, to MIT, they would go there, to Harvard. So it's also economical, as I told you, it's socio-economical effects which combined bring us to where we are.
Yeah, very interesting points and so many factors to take into account, of course. Talking about chess, we mentioned the fiscal aspect now, the more strategic, all of this. Is chess a sport?
Chess is definitely a sport. It's just very, very unusual, but it is a sport. It is recognized by IOC as a sport. It has very clearly demonstrable all the sportive sides there in chess. There are clear winner, there are clear rules, there are ratings, there are titles. There is no arbitrary judgment. Actually, if you compare with, I don't know, figure skating or gymnastics, or there you have less sports than chess, I would say, because chess, you have yourself, you have your opponents, you have your game, you have exact clear. I mean, the only thing which may make a thing that chess is not a sport, that it's not visually physical. Because otherwise it's a competition with clear rules and clear winners. So, but chess in fact is a sport. It's just unique. It's unique in a way that it started as a form of combination of art, pastime, maybe hobby, maybe for some it was like science. You would analyze and come up with some sort of discoveries. But in recent years, it has more and more features of prominent sports, because everything has been digitalized. You have ratings, you have titles, you have number of wins, you have coefficients and whatever. So it's clearly a sport.
And if chess encompasses all of the requirements to be a sport by IOC, then why can it not be a part of the Olympic Games?
It can. It is just very difficult to get into the Olympics, because every time that IOC expands slowly the program, making it possible for other sports to enter, they weigh so many factors that it's very difficult for chess to get in. But technically it can be. And I believe that at least we will keep presenting this option to the LOCs, because now the system is that IOC has provided LOC, so local organizing committee, with a possibility to include additional sports into the programs. We discussed it with Los Angeles Olympic Committee, the LOC, for Los Angeles 2028. We haven't managed to convince them, and chess won't be present there. But we will be also preparing something to showcase chess as a proper sport at 2024 Olympics. We will not be present there as a sport, but we will have our, let's say, possibility to showcase and maybe then to enter into the program of the 2032. But in terms of funding, for example, in many countries, chess already is under the National Olympic Committee guidance and is supported as an Olympic sport. And the most recent example among the countries was France, actually. It's a long path, not something that's going to happen overnight. I think it will have to do with the popularity of chess, and when IOC or LOC will notice how popular chess is, I definitely think they will consider it strongly to have chess as a part. So far, we have our own chess Olympiads, which are very successful, and both in terms of participation, but also in terms of followership.
Yes, so your own chess Olympiad is organized by FIDE. So how does that competition look like in terms of, is it every 4 years like the International Olympics, or how is the structure?
It's every 2 years, because we are not restricted now because if it would be for IOC, it would be very much restricted as a number of days, number of athletes participating and so on. As long as it is our own Olympiad, we are doing it as inclusive as possible. We have it every 2 years. We have last Olympiad, we had a participation of 191 countries. So it's huge. It's really huge. We have teams, obviously, from all over the place. We have open teams once again and women teams. And all together, the Olympiad attracts around 2,200 participants or so on. It's a big event which lasts for 2 weeks. And it's a very prestigious. It is I can just give you, for example, that we are in 2023, but already by 2022, we had organizers for 24 and 26 Olympiad signed. So in 2022, it was in Chennai, India. 2024, it goes to Budapest, Hungary. 2026 goes to Tashkent, Uzbekistan. And for 2028, we are actually already having early bids, and I expect that by the end of this year, we would already have an organizer for 28 Olympiad. So it shows how popular the event is. Also, it is quite massive and costly event, as you could imagine, but there is always very much, it is very much on demand.
Is it televised as well?
Yes, it is. It is always covered very well by TV in the local country. It is also shown by multiple internet portals. And now, as for bigger networks, there is always a challenge, and that's one of the challenges which I'm tackling in my position as well, is to find a balance between chess being a sport with classical chess format, because you would typically see chess games as long games with a strategic deep lasting, 4 or 5 hours, and the necessity or desire to be on major networks, which would never allocate as much time for chess competition. So there are faster formats, which are lasting half an hour or 1 hour, which is also an option. For the World Championship match, which we had in 2021 in Dubai, we had a highlights show screened every night on NBC Sports. It was like 4 weeks running every night and in prime time from 9 to 11. There was 2 shows, one highlights of the day and one of the previous day. So it was a long story told in 2 hours. And actually that was quite popular, but it was not about live games, it was highlights. So we are considering to team up with one of the major networks to go with something live for World Rapid and Blitz Championships. Because with the faster time controls, you can do it. If the entire game was in half an hour or an hour, then it's easier to be televised. And to say there is one exception one massive exception to that rule of longer games, because NRK in Norway broadcast all the major competitions, world champions and so championships and so on live, even if they're long ones. But that's obviously due to Magnus Carlsen effect.
Yeah.
In Russia, they have been broadcasting it as well, not in the sport channel of the TV, but of course now after the Russian aggression versus Ukraine, we narrowed down all the cooperation with Russian networks.
Yes. You mentioned Magnus Carlsen. How important is it to have this type of role models? I mean, I guess the biggest one is Bobby Fischer, and now also Magnus Carlsen. How big difference do they do for the interest of chess?
Very good question, actually. That's I would say Bobby Fischer, at his time, which was a bit more than 50 years ago, 72, he just basically accomplished a revolution by himself. Chess got on the mainstream media, on all the front pages of major outlets. He was a real superstar, I would say more than Messi and Ronaldo today, really, because there are several of these calibers today. He was like, whom could you compare in 72 to Bobby Fischer at that time, who beat the entire Soviet machine and so on. Muhammad Ali, yes. Probably nobody else. He was the hero, But that several factors played to that role, because don't forget, it was in a Cold War. You had this Soviets versus America. You have this confrontation of a self-made man who was basically alone, and that made for a great story. He was also by himself a very eccentric person who would make very provocative statements from time to time, so public loved it. In a way, he was ahead of his time, because that's what today is very common, for those who are seeking public attention through, all the media and so on. Fischer was not actually seeking public attention this way. It was so natural. That's why probably he was loved, because his statements were very much coming, they were sometimes even, we can say, tasteless, but public loved it, and coming together with chess greatness, that made a huge difference. Magnus is obviously a role model today, is of a different caliber, I have to say. As the world is different, as the popularity of chess compared to what it was in the height of the Cold War is different, we have to say. Okay, maybe now we start regaining, but it's on a different level. It comes more from a broader fan base than it was, but let's say prestige of who is the world champion in 1972 was completely different than today. But still, Magnus is very important, not only for Norway. In Norway, it really brought the chess revolution, but also elsewhere. And he is a brand name, and he's a great champion. He's a player with the highest rating in entire history, player who won most tournaments more than anybody else. And obviously, his impact is huge. I think what we lack in chess, and coming back maybe to women chess, we lack these heroes. We have very few people who actually would be recognized by regular public. Not only compared to football. In football, everybody now knows the football stars. But let's say in tennis, everybody would know who is Federer, Nadal, or Djokovic, and some more, right? Serena Williams. In chess, you don't have any single women player who would be recognizable after Judith Polgar. Judith Polgar, who actually stopped playing now for 10 years. And 20 years ago, she was in top 10 player in the world. And still her name resonates. But modern players are less so. And somehow it has to do, there's strange combinations. Actually takes us back to the discussion. Because these leading chess players come from the countries where this sort of promoting yourself as a star and not only just as chess player is not widely regarded as something common, it actually takes a toll, because Chinese players, they are not making effort to be stars, a part of chess stars, in the chess world. The same for Georgians. The same for Russians and so on. So it's actually sort of mixed feeling about that. They focus on chess, but then they miss a big opportunity possibly. But Magnus is obviously a star.
Yeah, for sure. And as you said, he's the best right now and maybe in history as well. There was a controversy with him when he was playing versus Hans Niemann lately. He accused his opponent of cheating. How has that been developed, and how has that, you think, impacted chess generally?
It hasn't been finalized, and the FIDE has been reviewing it formally and will issue the formal statement by the end of March. Before that, I don't want to comment largely on that because it's up to ethics committee of FIDE to actually issue any sort of statements on that. But talking about an impact, mixed feelings. I would say that chess got to front pages of all major media outlets, but for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say that having it once is not very harmful, maybe, but we definitely don't want chess to be there for, yes, another cheater was found, yes, because chess is not a game for cheaters. Actually, chess has always been and is a respectable game, and although we cannot deny that this cheating is happening, but it is, computer-assisted cheating is mostly, I would say, almost entirely, belongs to online competitions. It's just very easy to cheat in chess while playing online. FIDE mostly overuse the events which are being played over the board, and there we also have all sorts of checkups to prevent player from using any assistance. We have all the scanners, we have fair play officers who are monitoring, we have algorithms which are reviewing your moves and compare it to your chess level. It is much more difficult to actually escape when you have under competition which runs physical presence. Online is different, and online games which are multiple, and there are millions of games being played every day, and obviously no platform, whatever sophisticated algorithms they use, can detect all, and many times you have a situation when it's a gray zone. You feel that something is not quite right, but you cannot really prove, and that's a problem. That's something that chess should fight against, but once again, that's more about online chess, and we need to find a way to smartly approach it. So one of it is a format which FIDE has been adopting and conducting. It's similar to esports. It's a hybrid chess, we call it, but it's esport chess when players are playing online, but they are under physical monitoring. They either play it from stage, from arena, or they come to the chess club or National Chess Federation of some country. So they don't have to travel elsewhere. They can be playing in their home country. They can be filmed there. It can be a nice studio, or it can be like in an esports format, which we are doing now actually in cooperation with IOC. IOC Esports Olympic Series has chess debuting in Singapore, June 22 to 25. And that would be big. It's actually an event which runs in cooperation with biggest online platform, chess.com. So the series of qualifiers online, and then 8 best players would play in Singapore, June 22 to 25 under the IOCO's umbrella.
That's very interesting. And what you said with cheating, of course, that if it's a one-time event, then it might be, good PR. But you said it's important also not to have it more frequently, to be, cycling had a big issue with doping, and then you associate cycling with doping. And but it seems like you have a lot of rules and regulations.
Yeah. Just to not to misunderstand me, I don't necessarily think it's a good PR. I think it's a mix of a PR, but for the wrong reason. That's a bit different from being just a good PR. Yes, but otherwise, yes. I mean, it shouldn't be recurring because people would not distinguish that what happened online, what is not online. The chess should not be, and or and really does not deserve to be associated with cheating, because there are so many great things about chess, and that would be very damaging for chess to be associated with cheating and with these scandals. Obviously, if it happens once, we can live with it, and it will probably help us to introduce better practices and policies, right? But nobody's happy to have this scandal. Let's say we're not happy is that, oh, okay, we have now great PR. No, it's all.
I understand. Thank you for clarifying. Chess is an old game. It's estimated to be over 1,500 years old. And I read an article that said that chess has gotten a resurgence lately for main reasons. I will list them, and then I would very much like your opinion if you agree or not. So the first one is the interest and the hype of chess.com. The second one is Twitch and the streaming of chess. Third one is COVID-19 pandemic. And the fourth one is the Netflix series, The Queen's Gambit. So would you say that these four helped chess in the last couple of years?
They definitely did. I wouldn't necessarily agree that these are just the four pillars, or even that these are main four pillars, because there are more to it than to that. Chess.com and I would say also other platforms. Chess.com is the biggest by far, but say Chess is a big platform with over 20 million users as well. So chess.com with over 100 million registered users is a major player. It helps to those who are, in particular, helps to those who are infrequent in the chess. So you don't have time to study, you don't have time or wish to travel elsewhere to play chess, but you just can enter and have a game. And at every time of the day you can have a game. So it's obviously makes chess more popular. Twitch. When you talk about Twitch, I would rather focus maybe on streamers than particularly on Twitch, because yes, many of them have it on Twitch, but YouTube is another very popular channel for distribution of their streams. It's true that for the live streaming, Twitch is more popular among streamers, but then for uploading the content and various clips and so on, I think YouTube is a more popular platform. Anyways, Twitch and YouTube together, and more importantly, streamers like Hikaru Nakamura. Okay, it's strange to refer to him as just a streamer. He's one of the top players in the world, but also one of the two most popular streamers. Another one being Gotham Chess, international master Lever Osman. So his Gotham Chess, he's more about a mix of fun and education, I would say. We have several female streamers who are very popular. So this is obviously a factor. An important question where we draw the line. What is let's say, popularity? What is the conversion rate? I mean, if somebody is subscribed to one particular streamer, whether he'll go and he or she, they will go to compete somewhere, to take chess more seriously, to follow world championships, to go with some sort of internal home playing, I don't know, with their kids or with their partners. That's also a question, but obviously that's important that we have streamers who take it in a more modern formats, So it's great. COVID has been a factor. I mean, not, but we can see now that it was sort of a trigger, but not necessarily something that has to be there in order for chess to be popular. Of course, when people were locked down and spent more time at home and spent more time with the computer, we saw that many of them picked up chess or actually came back to the game when they played in their youth as kids. That's true, but we can see that it was more than a trigger, because otherwise we would see sharp decline, but it doesn't happen. Actually, it just continues to grow. So these people who are now don't have to sit at home, who have now less time than they had during COVID, they still keep following the events, keep playing on chess.com or other platforms. As some of them, if we talk about kids, started taking classes in schools, and that's an important one, which I will talk in a minute. And the Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit was very helpful. Once again, it's not, the effect of it is already felt much less than it was, let's say, 2 years ago. But yes, the combination of COVID and Queen's Gambit brought a great success at that time and served as a trigger, which we as FIDE have to now to maintain the level, but also, of course, it's not only about FIDE, it's entire chess community who benefits from that. Now, talking about FIDE ourselves, I would single out maybe two of the most important things which we are doing in order to have this attention to chess and people being following chess. One is chess and education programs which we are running, or chess in schools, whatever. As I mentioned earlier, so we have over 20 million of kids worldwide taking chess classes regularly, and this number keeps growing, and we have this program in more than 70 countries now. Now, here the role of FIDE is unique because no platform would do that for you. No entity can actually enter the Ministry of Education of the particular country, or Ministry of Sports if needed, or even a high level like a prime minister, to actually adopt this program in many ways to cover for the costs, to promote it as something valuable. Actually, one of the things that chess is proud about, that our images is helping us, but not just for the fact that chess has this image from somewhere. I mean, it's deserved positioning of chess, which has been throughout the years. That's something that helps kids, especially kids, not only kids, but to focus, to concentrate, to improve, to analyze your mistakes, to learn how to win graciously, but also to lose with dignity, to not give, let's say, away your chances, to seize the opportunity. A lot of things, to distribute time properly. That's a very important factor, and in our world especially. So you know that you have to look for a good move, but you cannot spend too much time on it. So to find to know this balance between time spent and decision taken, it's a very complex world, but chess makes for many things which then can be used in real life. So it helps us to open many doors, and we keep investing into this program because we see real major importance of it. And while I've talked with a lot of both governments, philanthropists, educators, I see that this combined effort is really making a difference. Maybe if you ask me why chess and not another math lesson, I have my utmost respect for mathematics, and my best friends are mathematicians and so on. But for kids, it's important to understand that chess is a game. So you both play, and at the same time you grasp some useful things, something for your personality to grow. And I think we are uniquely positioned as FIDE to promote all these initiatives, and we do that. And it's actually then brings a result, because then the same kids are coming to play online. Then the same kids are coming to chess clubs, and so on. So there's one aspect, and another aspect is obviously our major competitions, because we are, as FIDE, every year provide for staging up to a dozen of main competitions where all the best players take part. In average, we raise 5 to 6 million euro every year only in prize money for these competitions, and the total budget is much higher. It's only the prize money, but let's say Olympiad, chess Olympiad, you don't have prize money, but the expense is huge. The budget is like, I don't know, 12 or 15 million euro, depending on the place and details, just to stage it, because it's huge. You have to accommodate people, thousands of people coming for 2 weeks. You have to organize everything. So we invest in these tournaments, which then become sort of a event which people want to follow. A lot of spectatorship, and when we talk about, let's say, broadcasters, that's the content which they broadcast. So their numbers are not coming just out of something, but often from the tournaments which we organized. And I think it's very important also to have these events in all parts of the world. Let's say from our big tournaments, which I enlisted already, but let me repeat it. So we had last June, July, we had a candidates tournament, which is a qualifier for the World Championship match. We had it in Madrid. Then we had the events in Monaco, Women's Grand Prix in Monaco. Then we had the World Rapid and Blitz in Kazakhstan. Then we have another event coming now to India in New Delhi. We have next year, actually, we are going to have the major event, the Candidates 2024 in Toronto, Canada. And that's first time for a long time when such a top event, because it's basically second top event after the World Championship match coming to North America. So it's many continents, as Asia, Europe, and America. We also are having events in Africa, but on a smaller scale. But we really are planning to do something big there in 24-25, because we see that on African continent we have chess being prominently placed also in chess and schools programs, but also we see players who become, let's say, on par with the world top 50 or something. So it's also going to help them to grow. And chess is truly a unique game. It's global in the sense that every continent, every country basically has its chess players. And of course, that's something that brings us more and more responsibility of how we handle it.
Yes, of course. And the chess and education piece is obviously very important to start from early, to get the kids in early to the sport. And then, as you said, the gamification of chess, that it's, instead of taking another math class, you have the game aspect of it. I think that's incredibly important.
Yes, we are pleased with the approach. Obviously, when I talk about it, I tend to focus on things which are done right. And of course, with so many things running, not always the focus properly distributed between all the scope of our work. But we think that we managed to use it, let's say, the current wave of chess popularity to further strengthen the image of chess, the impact of chess. Sometimes we could do better, of course, but then again, the sky is the limit, and I think we have been doing quite well.
It sounds like it, and I'm very excited to see what's coming in the future as well. If we talk a little bit about you personally, you are, as everyone knows by now, the CEO of FIDE, and you also served as the FIDE Director General from 2018 to 22, and before that, you were the president of the Association of Chess Professionals. I know that you learned the game of chess very early, and reached the grandmaster level. So can you tell us a little bit about your own journey within chess and how you ended up as CEO of FIDE?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yes, I started playing chess at the age of 4, and I just fell in love with the game, fell in love. I played it at home, but rather quickly I started going to a chess club, and it felt very natural. It was never like I had to push to overcome some difficulties to study more or something. I simply loved it, and that's what's important. I mean, when you're doing something that you truly enjoy, then it helps you to do it without too much effort, without going, let's say, too often out of the comfort zone. Actually, it's a separate topic I would briefly touch, comfort zone. I don't believe in these modern practices of taking yourself all the time out of the comfort zone. You just have to expand it. Just expand it, and then you'll have more place to feel comfortably. So try new things and feel it. And that's why I felt so much within the comfort zone in chess. And I just loved what I'm doing, and slowly, or not very slowly, it helped me to grow to an international level. So I became international master by, I think, 15 or 16, and then by 18 or 19 I already made it to international grandmaster. And then I competed professionally, and I was European champion in 2001. And then I was Olympic gold medalist in 2010. And I couldn't complain about my chess career. And on my peak, I was number 15 in the world, which is maybe not as great as Magnus Carlsen, but surely is something to be proud about. But at the same time, I felt really back in the day when I was a professional player that there are so many things in the chess world that could be done better. And I started to combine my activities, and I ran for the post and became the president of Association of Chess Professionals. And then in 2018, when there were elections in FIDE, so I came up with ideas which were supported. And when the team of President Dvorkovich, who is a FIDE leader, was elected, I was appointed at the beginning Director General, and then later, starting August 2022, as the CEO of FIDE. So for me, it was always passion, which is more than a passion, maybe a mix of a passion and vocation. Of course, my studies helped me a bit outside of chess. I also studied economics, and it helps me in nowadays work. But what's most importantly, I think it's, let's say, this outlook and an attempt to grasp various ideas and try to implement them, because oftentimes you are lured into some feelings that, okay, things are going good and everything is growing, booming. FIDE's budget grew like 500% within 4 years, which is quite a feat. But still, I think we can do more. And as a chess player, I was always aiming at improving and getting better, because any real chess player knows that there is no boundaries to your improvement. You may be world champion, you may be Magnus Carlsen, but you still know that you can improve so much. And that helps me also in my work. I feel that I can do better. We as a team can do better, and I think that's what drives me more and more to work and to put into it more my thoughts, my energy. And let's say I'm in my position, or on the previous position, was almost 5 years, but I haven't been thinking of, I don't know, just enjoying and sitting on my laurels. No, definitely not. So I think we have many important tasks ahead of us, and I'm proud to proceed with that together with my team.
It sounds very exciting, and you have almost been your whole life in chess. And as you said, there is a lot more to be done, and exciting future for chess. But if you look back instead of forward, has there been any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Well, as a player, there's always many bumps. There is no way for any player, or I think that applies maybe to any sport, that you always keep improving. Even if you're, let's say, invest a lot of time, even if you try your best, it can happen that you stumble. And sometimes, especially in sports, in chess, simply let's say, 1 or 2 events, something can go wrong, and in spite that you are already better players than your rating indicates, it still didn't materialize. And the important thing is just to keep working and to know that, okay, the result will come. The same here, let's say in FIDE, you mentioned about opportunities created by COVID and so on. But it also created a lot of problems for us as FIDE. We have been in this crisis management situation for 3 years now, because COVID, it means that we couldn't have, it had a great impact and positive for online chess. But to remind you, FIDE was not doing almost any online chess activity prior to COVID. So we were not ready to that. So we had to change our perception, to look for new partnerships, to look for new ways to grow. We had to cancel many events, or we have to stage many events with so difficult preconditions, with all these COVID restrictions that were imposed on us. We had to take many difficult decisions, and that was obviously not making our life easier. And now this Russian war, because what happened for many years, as you know, Russia has been leading, if not dominating, a superpower in the chess world. Many events were staged in Russia. Let's say I mentioned you the competitions in India, the Olympiad 2022. which was greatly conducted by Indians in cooperation with FIDE. But it was actually originally planned to be in Moscow. And after Russians launched the war, we had to reschedule it and the Olympiad, which is typically planned 4 years in advance, as I just told you, or 5 years in advance. We had to reschedule it within 3 months, so 4 months. And that's just one example of crisis management. And there was sponsorships, obviously, and there was venue and so on. So there have been many things like that. You have to react and adapt quickly. Maybe as a former professional chess player, I was better adapted to that, because that's what happens in chess. You can run a game to have some sort of strategic plan, long-term strategy which you go ahead with, and then you have some skirmish on the board, something unexpected happens, and you have to react in a totally different way. So that's in a way what happened to FIDE and to actually the entire world. But yeah, I think we managed to respond to it decently, and now we're looking at new partnerships, new cooperations, and it has to be said that we all know that crisis is always an opportunity as well. So we just kept working, and the important thing, and the one which I had to study, and I'm still far from being perfect in that, is to work in a team, the teamwork, which is because as a chess player, it's not a team sport. So you just basically respond to yourself. And when you are CEO of a big institution, you have a big team. You have to coordinate it not only to structure it as a work on some project, but all the relationship between people inside and so on. That's quite challenging, but yeah, we are just people who keep improving their entire life. So that's all right for me.
I understand. That's an interesting aspect. And I mean, I often discuss leadership on this podcast. So how would you say then is your leadership style if you are used to, only answer to yourself and take your own decisions, and now you are the leader of a larger group?
Yes, that is one of the tasks which I have to probably review from time to time, because at times you are over-reliant on your abilities, and it is good that self-confidence and knowledge in different spheres helps you, but obviously you also need to combine it, to team it up with the team's work. Now, the teamwork can be tricky because some people are unhappy because they are not given enough assignments, and some people are unhappy because they're given too much. And then it's very tricky because FIDE, as international organization, we have representatives from 4 continents. And you have to tackle it, because taking into account their mentality, taking into account their tradition of how you talk to them, or how they communicate to horizontally or vertically to people inside FIDE, that all has to be taken into account. Maybe partly I'm helped by my chess expertise, because while competing, I traveled to so many countries and spoke different languages, still speaking different languages. And it helps me also to communicate to people in a manner that could be best suited for each of them. Okay, it helps me. I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect in doing that, but I think it gives me a slight advantage, or even not so slight, while knowing more about culture or tradition or mentality of people, and how to tackle the situation when they can be unhappy or too happy, and so.
Yeah. Is there something I haven't asked you yet that you feel is important to mention?
I think one thing that I'd like to mention, that what we do and we are proud about, is caring about the people of golden age. Senior people, we as FIDE facilitated many ways to support our seniors. That can be from staging the championships that attract hundreds of people traveling, because for retired people, chess and passion they had the entire life, it doesn't go away. They may lose their professional level, because, okay, when you're, let's say, 70, it's not so easy to retain your level, or even impossible. But we organize many events. They travel to, they participate, they communicate, they interact, they live the full life. And another thing which we are doing is chess for disabled, because chess, as you remember, you asked sports, whether chess is a sport. Yeah. Once again, it's not like a physical sport. So yes, chess for disabled is also very important. Not I would say project. It's not a project. It's like one of the directions we invest a lot to support disabled people to actually participate in chess activities. Once again, there are many people who have very high level in chess. Recently, in January, we staged first ever Olympiad for disabled people, for people with disabilities. We had over 20 countries arriving in Belgrade, in Serbia, to participate, and that was an event of a high standard. And once again, we are very much into that, and that once again underlines the role of FIDE, because that's type of events that basically only organization like us can pull. It's very difficult logistically, it's costly, but it's very much needed. We know that many people for whom chess remains maybe the only or clearly the most important thing in their life.
Yeah, it's great too that you include everyone in the game of chess as well.
Yes, this inclusivity, I think chess is absolute champion among all sports bodies. Inclusivity is played from basically 3 to 103, and I don't mention these numbers just out because we have registered players in this category and in that category. Of course, it's inclusivity in terms of physical ability. There is no reason chess cannot be played it can be played in any society, and that's a great thing about it. And once again, we are proud, but at the same time, we feel a responsibility about doing it properly.
Yeah, it's amazing and very important as well. Before I let you go, the last question that I ask everyone is, if you could choose the next guest on this podcast, who do you think that I should talk to?
Well, the most prominent people who actually are known to public, they have been interviewed many times. But I have to say that recently I befriended famous tennis player who became then tennis trainer, coach, and organizer, Ivan Ljubicic, former world number 3. And actually, I found his revelations and the way he views tennis and its challenges as very intriguing. He is also a very good chess player, almost expert level. I played with him, and ever since we met in Monaco in October 2022. We are in touch, and it has always been quite insightful. So I think he would be a great candidate.
Yes, that sounds very interesting. Emil Sutovsky, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sports Management podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to the Sports Management podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @sportmpodcast.